So there's this one time where I was walking into work, and it was like 4:10, 4:20, something like that. And one of my senior residents was working nights. He sees me, walking into the hospital, and he's like looking at his watch. He's like, "Dude, what are you doing here? It's 4:00 in the morning." And I just looked at him and I was like, I need to do this just to be able to survive, just to be able to keep up with everybody. At that point, I was like, am I even good enough to be in medicine? Do I belong here? Really? This seems so natural for other people, but not really natural for me. How is everybody remembering everything that they learned when for me it feels like that was 10 years ago? It wasn't a good look. It just didn't feel right. There were moments where I was like, yo, I should just walk out of here and not come back. And right then and there, he was like, oh, I know exactly what you mean. The same thing happened to me. He was telling me that he felt the same exact way, that he was filled with doubt. But then he told me, he said, the first half of your intern year is very different from the second half of your intern year. And he told me things that I needed to hear at that exact time. And it was my first time talking with him too. Awesome senior. And I gave him a big hug. I was like, dude, I needed to hear that. Thank you. And I went on about my day, but I held on to what he said, just prayed that got me through it. And that really helped me out. That's why I want to be the one to tell you. You're starting out in July 1st, you're starting out. Congratulations. It's going to be tough. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to feel like you don't belong there. You are not good enough to be there. That feeling that you get deep down where you feel like you can't breathe and you're panicking and you're scared, that goes away. Give it till December and see how you feel, because I promise you, you'll feel like a completely different person. Transitioning into residency was probably the hardest adjustment I've ever had to make throughout my medical career. Okay, aside from my first few months of starting medical school because that was very tough. Starting residency was just as hard, just in a different way. It's a little bit less stressful because you kind of made it to the finish line. So you're exactly where you wanted to be 4 years ago, but it's real responsibilities and there's real people that you're taking care of. But that transition from just one day being a medical student and then the very next day you are referred to as a doctor, you're responsible for your patients, and not just like one patient, 8, 9 patients at the same time. It's so stressful. You're just scared and you're panicking for the first couple months. And do you know how much I was sweating every single day that I went to work? I was just sweating all day. My biggest fear was I just didn't want my attendings to find out how clueless or how stupid I actually am. That whole fake it till you make it thing is very true, actually, and you'll realize that in residency. In the first couple months, you're doing whatever you can to survive. On a daily basis, you realize just how many deficiencies you actually have. And that's the tough thing about intern year. There are so many things you want to brush up on, and you feel like you need to be a little bit stronger, a little more familiar with the material, because you're seeing it in real life, and you're like, man, I should really know the ins and outs of this disease. You really have a desire to learn all that stuff, but there's absolutely no time to actually sit down and read and study. But yeah, there comes a point where you're absolutely clueless. You have no idea what you're doing and you're just scared and you're panicking for 12, 14 hours a day. And so that takes a toll on you, on your soul, and kind of numbs you to everything. For the last 4 years, my only responsibility in reality was take a damn test, study enough to know enough, to not forget enough, just to take a test so you could forget it in like 2 weeks. Okay, I'm referring to myself here, but when I was a medical student, I was just regarded as just that. There's like a little stench around you. And even when you're in your 3rd and 4th year, like going through clinical rotations, you're not very needed in a hospital. You know what I mean? Like you being there is extra work for people. So you're like stuck in a weird position and it sucks. You're trying to be helpful, you're trying to be resourceful, and you're trying to make a good impression, but you're also not trying to drive your seniors and your attendings crazy. But you also need that recommendation letter. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, with absolutely nothing changing in between those time periods, okay, now you're a doctor. Now it's your responsibility to take care of everything. Nothing has changed. I'm still the same person that was annoying just 6 months ago. And then now doctor, we need you. What do we do, doctor? You know how many questions you get from nurses on a daily basis? They're looking to you to solve those problems and to have the answer. In your first few weeks, when a nurse asks you a question, you're gonna be like, well, what do you guys normally do in this situation? Oh, okay, that sounds good to me too. All of a sudden you're just... What is this? But do you not see how weird that is? I can't be the only one who's thinking this. Yes, it will be tough, no matter where you are or what you're practicing. You got to realize there are a lot of checks and balances that have been put in place to make sure you get to that point where you start feeling comfortable to be practicing on your own. You're working with a team of residents. You usually have a co-intern that's with you, but you also have seniors, sometimes 2 seniors, second year, third year. That's how you get through the day-to-day. That's how you answer all those little questions, all the meticulous things that goes into being a practicing physician. And then you also have an attending who teaches you the concepts. You run everything through these chain of command just to make sure you're not accidentally killing a patient or something like that. You know what I mean? And I promise you, things that would make you sweat before, it just becomes natural. It becomes reflexive. And I never thought that would happen for me. How does something like that become reflexive? But by the second or third time that you're seeing the same disease, you know exactly what you're going to study. You know exactly what orders you're going to put in. You know exactly what medications you're going to start. And at that point, you stop sweating. While you're talking to a patient and gathering information for your HPI, you're already generating a list of assessments and plans that you have for the patient in your head while you're talking to them. So that's how it kind of becomes automatic. Just one thing I like to emphasize or warn you about. Although in your first year, you're doing whatever you can to survive, just after you start feeling a little bit comfortable, like after the 6 months, just start pushing yourself to try to gain a deeper understanding of everything that you're doing. Being able to justify why you're putting in every single order. Don't just do certain things just because you've seen other people doing it the same way. Always question why you're choosing one medication over another medication, why you're doing these studies exactly. What are you trying to figure out, or what are you trying to rule out? Just don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture. And secondly, don't forget that the person that you're treating is a human being. That is somebody's mom, dad, son, daughter, brother, sister. Just don't forget that's a human life sitting across from you who has a life just as complex and interesting and important as your life. Yeah, don't forget that that's somebody's grandma, you know, sitting across from you. You'll want to work for that patient, and you'll want to do everything in your power to make that patient better. And in the process, you'll become better.